All right. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Texas Corequisite Project Summer Learning Series. It's our last installment. And I want to thank you all for joining today, and those of you who've saw some of our other webinars this summer. For those of you who missed them, we have almost all of the videos up, I believe, on our website. And they're also up on the Texas Success Center's website as well, and we'll put those in the chat. And this will be recorded, as well as the webinar we had on Wednesday. We'll have those up by next week. And today we're going to talk about achieving 100% corequisites. And we're lucky to have a panel of 7 representatives from different colleges who have achieved 100% corequisites of their developmental students in either math or IRW, some of them both. And I'm gonna do a quick introduction of our panelists, and then they're going to each give an overview first of what their school is doing and how they've done it. Our first is Dr. D. Brian Anderson from College of the Mainland. I'm gonna raise your hand.
Hello.
And then we have Dr. LaJuanda Bonham Jones from Northlake College, which is part of the Dallas College District. Dr. Colin Charlton with UT Rio Grande Valley.
Hi.
Bridgette Marshall with Victoria College. Dr. Polly Allred with Texas A&M University Kingsville. And Penelope Davies with Amarillo College. And Ms. Elizabeth Stoerkel with Prairie View A&M. So we're from all over the state. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll have Brian start and talk about College of the Mainland.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Brian Anderson, and I go by Brian, and I teach at College of the Mainland in Texas City, which is between Houston and Galveston. College of the Mainland is called College of the Mainland. The mainland refers to the fact that we're not on Galveston Island, so there's also Galveston College south of us. I'm the chair of the Humanities Department at the college, and that includes English and IRW. Those are our 2 biggest classes, really. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we implemented corequisites in 2017. In spring of 2017, the college got a new president, Dr. Warren Nichols, and he asked us to move to 100% implementation as soon as possible. And so we planned to do it by fall of 2017. This was on the math and English side. I'm going to primarily talk about the English side of the model, but I'm happy to entertain questions about the math side, but I don't want to misrepresent anything, so please forgive me if I just say I don't know. The president did not feel a pilot program was necessary. He hailed from Tennessee, where they had implemented some of these models. And he had seen the success of corequisites and believed in their implementation as a matter of equity, and wanted us to do it, to move to that 100% level right away. So we did some planning in the spring and in the summer, and we did not run a pilot program. He felt that was unnecessary, as I said, because essentially the pilots had been done elsewhere for these models. If you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide. So just to talk a little bit about the English model, which is in the box there in the upper right, we based our model on the accelerated learning program from the Community College of Baltimore County. And this model, basically we put the English 1301 course, and we enrolled 12 students that are at the IRW level in that course, mixed in with college-ready students. And then those students, that cohort of 12 students, also attend the IRW class immediately following the English 1301 class. The IRW class is a 3-hour class, just like the English 1301 class. And we try to keep the same instructor on both classes when possible. That was the initial plan, and this model made a lot of sense in terms of our challenge to go to 100% implementation right away, because we were trying to keep the same instructor on both courses, that minimized the need for a lot of coordination, and it allowed the instructors to build relationships with those students. We're a relatively small college. We have enrollment of about less than 5,000. So this was possible for us. You can see the numbers on this slide that we were running about 12 sections in the fall. Fall is by far our biggest semester for enrollment for English 1301. We also began using embedded tutors in these courses. And that was the idea of the tutoring director at the time. And we're continuing to do that. This semester is a lot different, as I'm sure it is for almost everyone. We're not able to keep the cohorts in place because of the placement issues that we had earlier in the year. But the embedded tutors are professional writing tutors who attend the classes with the students. They serve as advocates for the students, and they help the students outside of class. They sit in on both classes when that's possible. Again, it's a scheduling concern and a resources issue, both with the staffing of the tutoring positions and also, of course, getting instructors on these classes. The success rates are on the slide here as well. I won't go over those in great detail, but you can see we kind of had a leveling off after the first semester. The first semester was when Harvey hit. So that's some of the, our anecdotal evidence suggests that students were just kind of in a different mindset in some ways once they returned to college. So that's all I have to say in terms of a general overview of our model.
So we'll move on to Dr. LaJuanda Bonham-Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first just thank you, Carolyn, Gail, your team, and the Austin the Austin Community College for the opportunity to just be on this panel with these wonderful guests. So thank you for that opportunity. So our approach was similar to Dr. Bryan's in that the House Bill 2223 design suggested that this was going to happen. So my executive dean at the time, Dr. Christopher Copeland, did what I call a calculated risk, in that he said, this is going to happen, so we're going to do this, and we're just going to go all in. And so what we did was we began the research process of McClenny and Hearn and, you know, those that's doing that progressive work, and kind of designed our model similar to the ALP. And we just did all in. We started looking at the data. So data became our very best friend, and that we started looking at success rates for 2017. We used that data to look at course time offerings for the DIRW, as well as for the English CoRecs, started looking at our success rates to see how our students were actually doing in those courses. Then we did, again, that same block schedule, in that if the DIRW course was offered at the 8 o'clock time, then that 1301 class would be offered immediately following it, utilizing the same instructor for both. Thankfully, we had good buy-in when we shared this with our faculty, and so we had some that were willing to just jump right in and teach those courses. We offered it in the 16-week format, capping those classes at 18. And then these courses were, so when we started scheduling classrooms, our CoRecs got the first choice of rooms because we put everyone in a computer lab. So we wanted that professor to be able to offer in-time support for those students. So every class was held in a computer lab for those co-recs. Again, we also embedded the tutor in those classes. So the tutor worked really closely with the instructor of record, as well as with those students. So to build that relationship, it was also helpful when the students would go to the Academic Success Center. They had a name that they would be able to ask, so they would ask for those tutors when possible. And the beauty was those tutors being in that classroom with the instructors could really offer some pointed feedback regarding different assignments and things like that. One of the other things that we did is that we also embedded an early alert initiative. So we established that for our program. And for this early alert system, we had 4 touch points with those students in an effort to try to catch any struggling students, to offer additional resources. And these students could request, reach out to say, hey, I need help. We also fixed it so that our instructors, if they noticed a student maybe wasn't attending class or what have you, that they could also refer a student so that we could try to reach out to them and catch them, provide some additional needed support so that they could be successful. The last thing that I just wanted to share is that we did, so each semester we do a debriefing session with the professors so that we can talk about what worked and then where do we still need some additional support or challenge or resources to continue to help our students excel. So real quickly, let me give you some statistics. Our success rates defined as A, B, or C. In our baseline data 2017, it was at 59%. And our completion rate was right at 85%. In fall of 2018, when we did 100% implementation, our success rates were flat in that they stayed right at 59%, as did our completion rates. But in the spring of 2019, we saw a 2-point increase for our success rates. Again, completion rates flat. And in 2019, fall, then we saw an additional 2 points percentage increase. But what we saw is that completion rate really jumped. We had almost 94% completion rate for our students. So that's kind of how we implemented it and what we're continuing to do at our campus.
Thank you. And we had something come up in the chat, which I think is a good point. And we'll go back and have Brian and LaJuanda say this quickly, and then those of you who come next. It'd be useful to know the relative size of the institutions. I think it is really useful kind of knowing just how they relate to like your particular college, and the size kind of, and if you don't know exactly the general idea of a size of the developmental student populations in math and English, INRW. Brian, I think that was on your slide, maybe?
Yeah, we have about 4,600 students enrolled in fall of 2019, just to give you an idea of the general size. English 1301 is generally the largest class in any given semester, often. And about 25% of those students, taking out the dual credit population, I believe, have a developmental need. And the slide said, I think we were running 144 students that one semester, and that worked out to be 12 sections for that fall.
Okay.
And so for our campus, we have in the English courses for the fall, generally we offer 22 or serve about 2,200 students. About 500 of those students tend to fall into that underprepared population. We offered each semester, we generally offer 14 minimum sections for our co-recs. So the fall 2018, we offered 14 sections. The spring we offered that same 14 sections, and then we had a jump in the following fall where we offered right at 18 sections.
Thank you. And then we're going to go on our next speaker. And just to let you all know, we started for this round, I started with the first 4 are IRW. Even though their school may have also gone in math, they were particularly kind of knowledgeable about the IRW side. And the last 3 are math, just in case you're wondering who's here for that. Our next is Dr. Colin Charlton from UT Rio Grande Valley.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. So I am at UT RGV in South Texas. UT RGV, I think, just cracked 30,000 students this semester. I think our enrollment's really up, so we're like at 31,000, I think. We have about 4,000 freshmen come in every year, and out of that, we offer probably 8 sections of co-requisites that begin in the summer, and anywhere from 12 to 16 co-requisite sections that happen in the fall alone. And that'll make sense in a second when I go over these 2 models. So a lot of the stuff that we do at UT RGV overlaps with what LaJuanda and what Brian were talking about. So I'll just talk about some of the differences. When we started doing it, we went all in at 100%. We had kind of an outdated multi-tiered developmental system for math and English at UTPA back then. And we had about 80 to 90% repeat rate, even higher for like 2 times and 3 times repeating for math classes back then. So when the move happened and when THECB had a grant, we applied for the grant and got a demonstration project grant. So we developed this over 2 years. There's a lot of overlap with the Baltimore model as well. What we have right now, after finding out that a lot of our problems with our students were related to poor test performance, but not in terms of their ability to actually read and write in an integrated fashion. We also did a quick look at our students the year before we launched this and found out that a lot of the lack of performance or a lot of the incomplete stuff that we were seeing was directly related to low attendance, a lack of feedback they were getting from teachers, non-assignment or assignment non-completion, unfamiliarity with campus, a serious decrease in the amount of in-class work that they engaged in throughout the semester, a lack of mentoring, and there was a whole lot of extracurricular responsibility that our students were going through. So we did some focus groups and designed what we do around some of those variables. So we basically now have 2 models. The one that's been around since 2011 is the studio model, where our students have, like Brian said, we have a co-requisite model that starts in the fall, 1301 backed up to a 0301 course. The students work in a studio that has whiteboard tables. It actually has whiteboard surfaces all over the place. They write all over the place. It has its own library in those classrooms and that kind of stuff. It has an embedded writing center tutor trained on feedback and student engagement. And the teachers that teach those classes usually experience kind of a release because they're teaching 4 sections, but 2 of their sections is the same cohort of 25 students. So it feels to them like they're same contact hours, but 25 fewer students in their load. The bridge model, which came later in 2015, it starts in the summer. That starts with a networking reading and writing class, which is not the same as what we do with the fall co-requisite. Those students start in the summer, do a 5-week summer bridge course that's kind of unique to what we do, where they learn about the campus. They make a whole lot of networks and a whole lot of connections. They continue with the same teacher in the fall in a regular 1301 class, just like the other cohort does. And then this year, starting this summer, actually, we launched a VIP program, what we call a VIP program, that has a separate cohort of students that can go through either one of those pathways based on the fact that they have more at-risk factors identified. And so we have one cohort that is based on TSI scores alone, and then we have the VIP cohort, which is based on TSI scores, 0 college credit hours, and a lack of registration before a certain cutoff date. And then that's the two models that we have. So you can switch to the next slide, and that has some of the data on it. I won't go through a whole bunch of it. I'm just going to point out that the bridge course actually has a higher pass rate, both for math and for ELA, or for IRW, than the fall co-requisite alone. And that's tied to the fact that we manually enroll the students that have to take these bridge courses in order to be enrolled at UTRGV. And then some of them opt out either because they make excuses or because they actually aren't available during summer too. And you tend to find out that the students that take it in the fall that have a lower pass rate, which is still pretty high, are ones that are also, they suffer from lack of engagement with the classroom. They have a lack of experience. The ones that take it in the summer tend to do what they're told to do, for lack of a better phrase, and they actually succeed more, possibly because they're taking all college credit courses in the fall and the spring. They don't have any developmental courses to take, and so their progress to degree is also quicker. And then at the bottom there, it shows how many students we have gotten through the whole process in both math and reading and writing since we started in 2015 with UTRGV as our new campus name. So I'll leave it at that and pass it on to the next person.
Forgot to unmute. Okay, next we have Bridgette Marshall with Victoria College.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Bridgette Marshall with Victoria College down here in South Texas, about 2 hours south of Houston. We have a population about 4,500 students. In the fall, I usually run 8 to 10 sections of INRW. We cap our INR, well, we call it INRW, I'm sorry. We cap the class at 20 students. Spring, I run anywhere from 4 to 6 sections. So it's a little smaller than some of the other ones, and it's definitely smaller than what our math department has to deal with in terms of developmental students. We, when we began, we didn't think we had the faculty to do the same teacher all the time. We wanted to do that. I know it's a best practice, but we just couldn't, it wasn't, we couldn't do it. We didn't have enough adjunct faculty either. And so we put what we call P students, that's what we call our developmental students. We paired the classes, so there are P students. We put P seats in all of our gateway courses. So if a student, they didn't just have to go to English. So if they had a lower, they could go to psych, they could go to history, they could go to sociology if they needed to. Government and econ actually are gateway, and we put some seats there, but they didn't fare well in those courses, so we try to steer them out of those. But that helped spread the load a little bit, so they would still have an INRW teacher who was an English professor, and then those INRW teachers worked with whomever the co-requisite, the gateway instructor was. They'd get their syllabus and offer that just-in-time support within the classroom using those specific syllabi from those instructors. So often, they are paired with English. I want to say probably 95% of them do go to English classes, but that was one way to help, that I think helped get us to the 100%. And we decided to just go for it because when we were talking about the mandate from the state, it looked like it was coming anyway to 100. And when we were trying to plan it out, we were thinking, well, if we do devise a method and it works, will it still work at 100%, whatever method we come up with this population? If it works for 25%, will that still work with scheduling and faculty with 50%, 75, or 100? So we decided to try to have a good solid plan and work on tweaking it. So that's those are some of the reasons we went ahead with 100%. When I began here, we had developmental education was a separate department. And that's where I started. And then it was dissolved and taken back, split with, and INRW came to English, math went to math faculty. So my dean was very supportive. He was like, you've had experience here. What do you want to do with it? So he was on board. We decided that all instructors, there were no developmental instructors. Everyone was going to teach INRW. Everyone was qualified to teach INRW. So everyone would teach INRW. And again, as often as possible, we did pair those students with the same instructor, but it's just not always possible. We did a lot of work with our advisors. They were on board 100%, and we just essentially got the word out all over campus as to what we were doing. Everybody has a placement chart. Our administrative assistant has a placement chart. Everybody knows what's going on and where a student needs to be. We worked really hard to make sure that the instructors, the other gateway instructors that we were working with, to get them on board, let them know you don't have to do any of the remediation, if you will. We just need to work with you. We're not going to try to teach psychology. I would think that was their biggest fear. We're not going to try to teach history. We're just going to offer the support for that group of students. We don't want you to alter your class in any way. I think that was a big fear that they had going into it. So it's been working really well. We had tutors as well. They weren't in every INRW class, and they were student tutors that we paid. They received the same CLRA training and the same training that our tutors get at our regular tutoring center, but they were assigned to specific instructors, so they would sit in on those classes as well. And our thinking was that the students would feel more comfortable with a peer. We seem to have a lot of difficulty getting students to go over to the tutoring center. So we blocked off some rooms in the language building. It's like, oh, hey, right after class, you can go right here. Again, those student tutors were in the classroom. They could get that more pointed instruction or reminders. Hey, remember Professor Marshall said do this. And I think that helped with it as well. So our INRW students are spread out, and our other gateway instructors are on board. We work a lot, very closely with them. We gave our English, all of our INRW instructors a lot of latitude. As long as we meet the objectives, they could do what they wanted to do. So some people were very excited about that, and in terms of what they could use in terms of material. Some people not so much, and they wanted a text. That was a bit of an issue, but academic freedom, they could use a text if they found one that they liked. But it was very exciting to some of the instructors to have a little more freedom than they would in their composition classes. So that's the gist of the program that we have here. We meet the objectives as put out by the state, but we give the instructors a lot of leeway in how they choose to meet those objectives. We work very closely with advising to ensure that we have some satellite centers. We work with those advisors as well. It's all about placement, making sure that people are placed in the right support class or the actual INRW class. And of course, we allow them out. They can test out anytime during the semester. That's often attractive to those INRW students. Sometimes makes them work a little bit harder. But some of the students actually enjoy the class. We've had some pass, and they show us that they passed. They realize the benefit of it, and they've stayed through the semester to get that support through that credit-bearing class. So that's what we're doing down here.
Thank you. It was interesting because the four of you had a lot of different approaches there of how you're achieving this. Now we're going to move into math, and we're going to start with Dr. Polly Allred with Texas A&M University, Kingsville.
Hi, everybody. Okay. All right, I'm glad to be with you. And this is a terrible slide. It has way too much stuff on it. So kind of a timeline
I
of.
can't see your slide, Polly.
You cannot?
Sorry. No. Can you try again?
No. Yes. And I practiced. Hold on. Okay. Share screen. How about now?
Yes.
Looks
Okay.
good. Yep. Might want to put it in the slideshow
Yeah.
mode.
There you go. Can you see it now? Is it big?
Yes, looks great.
Okay.
It is. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So a timeline of reform at A&M Kingsville. So developmental math and reading and writing moved to the academic departments in 2011. It had previously been in University College. And then the first co-requisite model was Complete College America Focus Contemporary Math, which was run by the math department in 2013 to 2015, which was small, but very, very effective. We targeted students, we recruited students who had failed developmental math multiple times and were way behind on their degree plans. It was small, but it was very, very effective. At the same time, Student Success was piloting the NCBO labs for math and English, very small pilots for 2 years. And then they fully scaled implementation of those NCBO support labs for 2 years in academic years 15-16 and 16-17. So that was Student Success operating the non-course-based support labs, while the academic departments were teaching the college level coursework. And for math, there was about 30 to 40% participation in that co-requisite model. And, and we stopped doing the Complete College America Focus Contemporary Math model because it was super expensive. It just was not a sustainable. It was idealistic, it was a great model, but couldn't be continued. And there was not very many students it was serving. Then House Bill 2223 was announced, and we began planning, intense planning began for that for us in spring of 2017. And we went to every single, meeting, seminar, webinar, whatever for that. And we moved those non-course based labs, we moved those to the academic departments. That was a contentious topic, but we got those moved back to the academic departments by fall of 18. Math scaled up to 45% in academic year 18-19. We added another co-requisite mathematics model, a 3+3 model in spring of 2019, which enabled us to scale to 75% co-requisite participation in academic year 19-20. This graph right here shows the distribution in some groups of interest, the distribution of participation, because we are interested in access and equity, in equitable access to our models. So we have some groups that don't always get the same access, right? You can see here that females, for example, aren't participating in our models at the same rates that males are. Why is that? Okay, so we are trying to figure some of these things out and pay attention to them and take steps to remedy those types of situations. Okay, so overall we had 79% in fall of 2019, 75% for the whole academic year. For fall 2020, we will be at 100% access to co-requisite models for the House Bill 2223 population. What co-requisite model access to more math students has accomplished for our university is the emphasis on this has helped us to double our pass rate for our developmental math students in 5 years. So 5 years ago, about 30% of our developmental math students were passing, and now about 60% in a single semester. In fall 2019, as one example, 74% of all of our developmental math students are not college-ready math students. They met TSI, and of those, 69% of them also passed their first college math class in the same semester. So that's really huge for us. Oh, about the size, I'm sorry. I don't have it on the slide, but so our size has varied. In 2018-19, our undergraduate population was about 8,300. It declined last year sharply. I don't know what it was, but I do know we experienced an enrollment decline. For developmental math, our developmental math numbers are declining on purpose because our pass rates have been increasing. So we have been working ourselves out of our jobs in our department. But for math in 18-19, I would estimate we had for the whole year 360 developmental math students. And then for 19-20, we had about 250. English, well, the ratio is like 2.5 to 1 math to English developmental students. So a little bit about our models. Our developmental models, okay, so this title is not right. Well, okay, so sorry. It's been a horrible week. So we have just ignore the top 2 lines. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have 3 levels of support. Our placement is based on multiple measures. The developmental math portion is taught by math faculty. So basically, if it's a math course at our university, it's taught by a math faculty member, okay? Our curriculum is coordinated and aligned. Our co-rec sections pair with any gateway math section. They're not linked, like Bridgette said, except it's for our math gateway courses. Our co-rec students are commingled with college-ready students in the gateway math sections. And we assign supplemental instructors to be embedded in those co-requisite sections so that they can be intrusively supportive. And here is some of our success data from academic year 18-19 and fall 19. I don't have updated data from last year because spring kind of messed everything up. So this is first course success data, same semester, not in a year, but in the same semester. So students who pass the first college level course in the same semester. So this is our, so 68% or 69%, it was right about in there, of our Corequisite students passed their college level math course in the same semester. In fall 19, overall for the whole year, 65%. So basically that tells you spring semester is not as good as, well, no, this was the previous year, right? Oh, I'm all confused. 18, 19. So yeah, that was the previous year. So we were doing better in fall 19. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's it for me. Okay, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Then we're going to go on to Penelope Davies with Amarillo College.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I would be remiss if I did not thank you. And Christy, you've been absolutely invaluable. And also we have with us in our wonderful group, our Dean of STEM currently, Edie Carter for Amarillo College. She's our Dean of STEM. She was actually the guiding force behind our 100% correct. She currently was the Dean of what we called academic success. Now, as y'all have mentioned prior, the math that worked so intensely with our developmental students have gone into our mathematics. Our English has gone into the English piece. Although for us, our planning occurred very much inspired by our visionary Vice President of Academic Affairs, and that is Dr. Clunas, as well as our President, Dr. Larry Hart. They felt that with the legislature encouragement of 25%, 50, and then 75%, that it was time to go 100%. So through their vision, as well as Edie Carter's vision as our Dean now of STEM, which she also helped me with these slides. So I want to also recognize that and appreciate that support so much. We went here, our planning occurred in our year 2018-2019. We began registration for fall 2019. Hard to believe, a year ago, for any of our students who had not met Texas college readiness standards, they were immediately placed in their first year in a co-rec pairing. And these pairings were 8-week courses. We have 8-week courses. Our classes run concurrently during the 8 weeks. So we have the transfer is scheduled first, and then the co-rec is supportive following immediately after. We have 2 instructors that work with our students. We have a dedicated tutor, and then of course we have, as y'all had mentioned on y'all's campuses, a tutoring center. We call it Math Academic Success Center. And the dedicated tutor that were placed in our co-rec classes, they too were identified, just as was mentioned by Dr. Bonham, and also the other lady, Miss Marshall, I believe, said our students would go in and ask, where can I find my tutor that was in my co-rec class? So that was kind of fun to have that relationship and that encouragement that, yes, the tutoring center was indeed the place to be. We had 4 pathways for our math co-rec to allow our students to immediately that first semester go into a transfer level math class. We have what we call college algebra STEM. It is a 4-3 alignment. We have our regular college algebra, math 13-14. It is a 3-3. Our contemporary math or quantitative reasoning, 3-3. And then our math for business 1 or mathematics of business social sciences, that is a 3-3 also. In the 2 classes, we actually had the good fortune to have a wonderful pairing. So we had 2 instructors, and those instructors who were very skilled in working with our developmental students really added for us in our transfer or credit bearing world and enrichment. They knew how to establish that one-on-one relationship that was absolutely invaluable, not only for us as transfer instructors, but especially for our students. But it was truly a win-win, this particular arrangement. In the two courses, they earned 2 different grades, our students. Now, the major exams from the transfer course was placed in both grade books, but they had that particular flexibility where there were different things happening in each of the 2 courses, all supporting that student success. We did require a test review. That was, in a sense, their ticket to take their test before going to the testing center. The tests were monitored in a monitored environment, the major exams, and they were taken outside of class. We also have at Amarillo College a tutoring for success policy, and this is in place across the college. For mathematics, it required our students who made below 70 on any major exam, they were asked to spend 1 hour in our Math Success Center, our outreach tutoring center for math. And so oftentimes they'd ask, well, where's my tutor from my class, which was really, really added to the richness of that continuity of indeed, you can be successful. And I think that was one of the most exciting pieces of going 100% correct. That really can-do attitude, that within an 8-week semester, your particular students can be taken to where, for many of ours, as you see in our 4 pathways, that's the last math they need, really, for them to accomplish their associate's degree, their certificate, or their applied associate's degree. So that was very, very exciting. Amarillo College is comprised of about 10,000 students. In our co-rec classes, we have approximately 500 students that are participating in that particular session, as well as we do have a cap of 30 students per class. So as far as that data is concerned, let's look at that next slide and look at the data that we have for us to review. Our first time in college students in 2018 that had not met the Texas College Readiness Standards in our, in a sense, our linear developmental education model for mathematics, their course success was 64%. With going in 100% co-rec, our first time in college students, fall 2019, for those students who had not met the Texas College Readiness Standards in a co-rec model, 100% co-rec, that course success was 70%. So we were so encouraged with that increase. Now, of course, student success is extraordinarily important. No one would deny that. With the legislature changing their focus a bit from student success to completion, we also did, with predictive modeling, a projection. And the predictive modeling here used what was referred to as the Will-Coxon rank sum here test, and it projected that the time to complete our students' AC work, whether that be a certificate, whether that be their associate's degree or their applied associate's degree, for our students in the spring of 19 was about 3.6 years to complete their particular dreams and goals. As we continued, and we also had the good fortune through our Executive Director of Data Analysis and Institutional Research, Mr. Witherspoon, the predictive modeling for spring 2020, that projected time to complete Amarillo College work yielded 2.7 years, which was for us extraordinarily exciting to see our students be able to accomplish their goals and their dreams where mathematics was not that barrier, and to go into our community to help our community with perhaps an even greater educated workforce. Now, multiple methods of instruction were used in our Corequisite math courses. They include modeling, various ways to learn the material, and we tried to engage, especially in the correct time that supported the transfer course, that high engagement strategies in the classroom. Certainly in mathematics, we can't get away from paper and pencil. That is our livelihood. That is our life. That practice makes it absolutely invaluable. But we also, with the creative venture of our co-rec partners, we went into dividing our students into teams on the whiteboard, having them work and practice problems on the whiteboard. We have online systems where My Math Lab is a key component, and then calculator experiences. Many of the teams were never stagnant or stable. They were continually being adjusted to perhaps place a high achieving student with perhaps a student that was having a few more challenges with the subject matter. And it seems so ironic for us as faculty members to say our students often learn much more from another student than they actually do from us. In other words, I can say something many times, but to have another student say it once, they've got it. And so that is a real exciting here, perhaps opportunity for me to watch. I know I learned a great deal with that. Also building those personal relationships with our students, letting them know that we do care about their success, we do care about their understanding of mathematics, and we care about them succeeding and moving forward to get that better job that will not only help themselves, but also their families. So that is Amarillo College Co-Rec 100% Mathematics. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have Elizabeth Stoerkel with Prairie View A&M.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Stoerkel, and I'm an instructor in the mathematics department at Prairie View A&M University. We are located northwest of Houston, maybe about 50 miles northwest. We have a student population of about 9,000 students. We started working on our co-rec model, I think probably about 2018. In the 2018-2019 school year, we started pairing our classes. So our college algebra and our contemporary college algebra classes were paired with a, which would have been, a developmental class. Okay? And so the students would be enrolled in both the college algebra and contemporary college algebra and the developmental class. Okay? Then in 2019, 2020, the university decided to eliminate all developmental programs. And so, so our developmental math teachers came to the math department, and then the English developmental teachers went into the English department. And so then we continued the idea of pairing. So there are certain sections of college algebra and contemporary college algebra that are connected to a co-rec class. The students that are in the college algebra class are also the ones that are in the co-rec class. Okay? There are two instructors, one instructor for the college algebra, the contemporary college algebra course, and then there's another instructor that has the developmental background, teaches the co-rec class. So the two teachers work together to go over material. It's basically a just-in-time type setup where whatever is going on in the college algebra or the contemporary college algebra, whatever topics are being discussed, they're also being discussed in the co-rec class. But the co-rec class also offers some review, okay, of basic skills and concepts, and then of course when it comes time for the test, they also review the students. The classes that are connected with the co-rec class are the 2-day-a-week classes. So we're looking at Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. That's when the college algebra or the contemporary college algebra is offered. Okay. Then the co-rec class meets on the alternating day. Okay, not necessarily at the same time, but sometime on Tuesday, Thursday, if it's a Monday, Wednesday college algebra class, or they'll meet on Monday, Wednesday if it's a Tuesday, Thursday contemporary college algebra class. Okay. The department and the different teams felt that that way they would see the math, consecutively, 4 days in a row, they go over it and stuff. Now the instructors of the co-rec classes and the college algebra and the contemporary college algebra instructors work together as a team to, go over material and what we need to go over, what we need to work on, that type decisions. And then in the classes, they use a variety of teaching methods to go over the material, have the students go up to the board. Sometimes they'll do little activities, okay? And then of course, some of the college algebra instructors also, and contemporary college algebra also go through that too. So, so that's basically how we have our co-rec program structured. I assume English or writing co-rec program is done in a similar manner. I know they work with their students in a similar way. So that was all I wanted to mention. So thank you.
Okay, thank you all. The first thing I was going to ask had to do with, for those who didn't already say in their overview, what led you to move to 100% co-requisites? And I think I only have 3 of you who didn't hear explicitly why. And so the first one I'll ask is Colin. I think you were saying that you participated in a grant. Was that what led you to move to 100% co-requisites, or was it something else?
We used it as an excuse. I took over developmental reading and writing in 2007, and we were going to gut the whole system and go to a single course. And the Baltimore model came out somewhere around then. And so we were already moving that direction, and then the grant opportunity came out, and since I guess we were a pretty big institution, and because we were in HSI, we were high at the top of their list to involve in the grant. So
I think, I don't have it in my notes, but I had that, Bridgette, I had that you answered this question, but maybe you can, I didn't take the best notes, I'm sorry, but I think you answered, but tell us again, what led you to go to 100%?
We just, once we saw the mandate, we just felt like it was coming as 25, 50, 75.
Okay.
And then we also thought that what worked for 25% may not work for 100% when we began scaling. So we didn't want to have something and then have to revamp it completely.
Okay.
So we'd rather work on fine tuning it.
And then Polly, you talked a lot about, equity and access. Was that what led you to move to 100%?
Yeah, to respond to that question, there are 3 things that led us to move in that direction. First being that our students in our co-requisite models are more likely to be successful in mathematics than students in our standalone developmental math course. They get more support. And they feel like they're moving, they feel like they're accomplishing more. Number 2, we have a deep philosophical commitment to our students that we admit And we believe that they belong at our four-year institution, even though they may not be college ready in a particular subject on a particular day. And we don't believe that their major should be decided based on their readiness. It should be decided by what they want to do with their life. And so we feel like it's our responsibility to make sure they have access to college level coursework in the first year, and that we can give them the support for access to and support for success in that. And then the last thing is that I read in the statewide developmental education plan that that's the goal for 2023. So I figured it's coming down the pike, and you know, everything I read.
Wow.
So I just figure if it's coming, I don't like to do things when I have to do them. I like to have it in place and have a good program running that's good for people. I don't want to be scrambling. So that's why.
Thank you. And then I think Elizabeth, I wanted to ask you what led you all to move to 100% Corequisites?
I would say it was, you know, we knew it was coming, that the state wanted it. And so the administration just said, you know, we're gonna do this. So, you know, we got together as best we could and figure something out. And so we decided to work with this idea of just in time matching the classes.
So I did put a note in the chat box that if any of you have some questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. We had a few kind of tentative questions in case you all didn't have questions as well. Okay, so I think we had one question about students who are in level 1 certificate programs who don't need college level math courses. And I think those don't count in the state counts for the Corequisites. I think this person was wondering, how do you handle those students? You know, if you're 100% Coreq and you don't have developmental for them, how do you handle those types of students? Does anyone have any?
I can say briefly that we initially considered offering some separate sections for cert level students. There didn't turn out to be a real big demand for that, and we don't offer them anymore. I think part of the feeling was that if students want to go on beyond the certificate, it'd be better to give them that credit level course and have that in their quiver.
We have a few like that. Sometimes we just have students who might even still need it, but they're just so apprehensive if they've been out of school so long, they just sometimes absolutely refuse. But it's been such a negligible amount that we'll just do the override and allow it. You know, it hasn't really affected the actual percentage. So there are a few in the INRW class, but I mean, it's a negligible amount. So they can still, we're not going to turn a student away, you know.
Right. Let me see. The next one is, this is a question for LaJuanda. You noted your instructors debrief about deficits and successes in their Corequisite course, and what do you attribute the 2-point increase in the spring and fall of 2019 to? So it's a very specific question.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so when we talk about just the increase, I think that one, we have, for our 2019 specifically, we used a different set of resources. So in 2018, our tutors were skilled and part of the Academic Success Center. In 2019, we did a collaboration with the adult education grant. And we used some of their instructors that are certified instructors, and their area of expertise is working with those students that are in those lower level, those lower rankings of the ABE. So they were able to use some of those strategies to really help strengthen that just-in-time support. That's what that's what's the only difference at this point, that we can see that instructor worked so closely with the professor, but used a lot of those strategies to really help build those areas that they were able to identify, use some of those strategies to help with the success.
Thank you. All right, we had a question about how are you taking care of ABE 1 to 4 students, especially if they're not in the first semester of enrollment? And does 100% for your school mean everyone goes to the co-rec regardless of TSI score? And Polly wanted to start answering this question, and then we'll let any of the rest of you who want to talk to it as well. So we're talking about the ABE 1 to 4 students.
I'm so glad that Ellen Falkenstein answered that, or asked that question, because that was one of the big barriers for me going to 100% co-requisite for mathematics, because I just didn't know how we were going to do that. And then I met Ellen, and so what we're doing, so we have a few, we're at a 4-year institution, so we don't have a lot of these students. I have about 2 sections each semester of ABE 1 through 4 students, or also maybe a few ABE 5-6 students with very low GPAs. It's like alternative admissions students, very low GPAs. And for those, or like she said, the ABE 1 through 4 students who are not in their first semester. So this House Bill 2223 reporting methodology was very confusing to me at first, because they're not excluded from your denominator unless they are in the first semester that they ever reported. Okay, so you may think that they have a 4 and that you can exclude them, and then you find out, I mean, it's the first time they took your class, but they may have reported 3 semesters ago, and they're in your denominator. So, so Ellen, and I hope I understood what she meant, because we're doing it. She said that what they do is they have a base NCBO that they, and so this is what my plan is at A&M Kingsville. For those students in my formerly standalone, my single standalone developmental math class, I am going to stack a base NCBO, and they are going to have a support section. And I am just going to pour in the support, and those students can only be in that section with permission. So it's not like anyone can be in that wants to. All of the advisors who don't think their students can or should have to take college level math, I'm still battling them. It's not going to be a dumping ground. We're still going to accelerate students, but so that's what we're going to do. Let me know if I answered that well enough.
Do any of the rest of you have anything you want to add to that part, the ABE 1 to 4? I didn't really think to clarify, like when we're saying 100% corrects, are we talking about what the group that the co-board thinks is, that we're pulling from, or is it 100% of all your students? I think that's a good question in general.
Yeah, for us, it's the House Bill 2223.
Right.
We're not putting like if I have somebody come in with a, you know, with a sixth grade, I'm not putting that person in college algebra. That would be the wrong thing to do for that student. Okay.
In Amarillo, we have what we refer to as a Smart Start, and that has tutors and very skilled, sort of professional, in essence, tutors that help our students get a little bit stronger foundation in the basic skills. Especially for us, the TSI scores of 310, the lower, and the ABE 1 through 4, they have a method. It's absolutely free for our students, and they can go and, as the name says, Smart Start. They can get a start where they can build up that foundational skills. They too are placed in our correct model.
And I'm going to move on to another question that kind of lined up with one of the questions we were going to ask. And it's talking about, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase this question because we were going to ask kind of, you know, everyone's going to potentially be at about 75% this fall. But there's that last 25% of the students. And it's usually those students who are at that barely considered developmental. So maybe, you know, they're not in the ABE 1 to 4, but they're ABE 5, or they're just barely above. And I think that's what this question is asking about too. How are we reaching those students? That last kind of 25%, or that last group, that group that comes in at the lowest level that we're considering developmental and not adult basic ed. And this is wide open if anyone wants to.
At our campus, we have been working on a program that provides additional support to students so that they can then, so it's a computer program that was designed by one of our instructional specialists. It focuses on specific areas that students are just lacking in, so that they can then pass that TSI. And so it's a, believe, if I'm not, don't quote me on it, I'll research it and tell you exactly, but I believe it's like a 4-week online program that they do, and then they can go back and take that TSI, and generally their scores then move above the baseline that's required so that they can move into the next phase of courses.
And we have an NCBO for those students. So they get into their credit level if they're at the top level. We have an NCBO on both ends. So we do take a hit with the ones who are the ABE 1 through 4, because they are in that 1 hour, is an additional hour a week support, and the INRW course. And then the students who are at the upper end, they have an additional hour and they're in a credit bearing course. So that's how we handle the bubble students.
I'll kind of add, I think, and this is, you know, I'm from the math side, so of course I'll be math biased, but I think on the math side, we're concerned about the students who are going into the algebraic courses, and those students who come in at that very, they're not ABE 1 to 4, but they would have in the past come in like barely getting into like elementary algebra. And what I've heard from, you know, not just our college, but like a lot of different colleges, is how do you get those students? Because they, you know, what I hear is they think that these students, some of them just aren't ready to go straight into like a college algebra or a math for business for I can't say it, but math for business and economics or finite math course. So I think in particular, and I'm sure there's the same kind of situation on the IRW side, is just kind of, they're kind of at that bottom level, and how do we, what do you have some tips for those of us who are trying to figure out how to reach that last 25%?
If I may say, one of the other things that we do is we offer TSI boot camps. So in that 2-week, 3-week period after the semester ends, before the summer or before the next semester. So it's like a 2 or 3 week intensive program that again helps to strengthen those areas that the students, that's been identified in their assessment, so that again, it's opportunities for them to go back and retake it. In that TSI boot camp, there is funding that will pay for them to retake that test and things like that. So those are some other strategies that we've implemented to try to help those quote unquote bubble students.
Did anyone else have that sort of a experience, that sort of concern, or?
I think it's a major concern. I think you're absolutely right, Carolyn. I think that's where our Smart Start, we have been so fortunate to have a facility where our students can go, get extra support, get extra care. Just as Dr. Baumann said, they do have a boot camp for the TSI. It can be from 8 hours to 2 8-hour sessions, and it has shown wonderful results. Also, we find the students that are then placed in correct, so oftentimes they go back to our Smart Start, even though it's a separate room from our Math Outreach Tutoring Center, and they get support there, and they'll help them with their college algebra and things such as that. So that added enhanced support has been invaluable.
I think I think tiers of support. So our students who need less support, we don't require as many extra hours on task. I will assign one supplemental instructor to that section. For the 3+3 model, I'm going to put 2 supplemental instructors in there to divide that class up. They will be more intrusive, and there's more time on task too. And then for this base NCBO model, they're going to have a supplemental instructor in both sections, the developmental course and the NCBO. So they're going to have people. The only way to get rid of us is to get out of that class successfully. We're going to be all over them. That's the strategy.
All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I like that. We're going to be all over you until you get out of this class. So you might as well just get out of the class to annoy them into passing, right? Do we have any more questions from the attendees? We had a few more that we had kind of talked about, and a lot of you covered this in your presentations. But I want to kind of shift into the idea of like continuous improvement. Now you all are at 100%, right? You did it, but as you know, we're never really done. So do you have any plans for making any changes or improvements now that you're at 100%? Oh, sorry, I muted myself. I'll let you raise your hand and talk to any of you.
I'll go ahead and answer that if I may. Yes, we went to 100%, right away, and so we are very mindful of the need to continuously improve and evaluate what we're doing and reflect on that. And one of the things that I was told at a conference early on by one of the presenters who was who had was an expert in this area and had helped to implement models in other states. He said, you know, you're going to improve whatever you do anyway. And so that's one of the things about going to 100% is like, you're never going to get that perfect model before you implement it. So may as well go to 100%. That was an interesting way to look at it. But nonetheless, we're continually evaluating what we're doing and looking at other models and going to conferences. You know, that's why I appreciate these kinds of initiatives and conversations so that we can take advantage of this professional development and continue to be part of the discussion so that we're not just isolated and sitting on our laurels. And we're also, just to speak to that question about the last 25%, since we didn't, you know, it's an odd question for me in a way because we didn't have that last 25%, but we still did because we had to reach them in a holistic way. You know, how are we going to get those students to buy into this? And we did have student resistance, and we still have that bottom level of students. It's not always by score, you know, it's not just by motivation level or whatever. And so we continue to look at ways to reach them and to connect with them and build relationships. We tried a lunch last semester, you know, early in the semester, and that didn't work very well. But, you know, we're open to those kinds of ideas and just trying to create those connections.
Great, Bridgette.
I'm glad he said I had a little trouble with the question too. I was like, I don't have the 25%. But one thing, just from the webinar earlier this week it was like a aha moment. We want to look at, I love the multiple measures. The multiple measures, we don't use that right now in placement at our campus. And I think that could definitely help campuses who may be struggling with that in terms of placement. And I think it is more beneficial to the student and a more accurate picture. And that could, I think, have an impact on enrollment. And the other thing that that we're going to work on here, one thing we did was look at all of our population and see what they actually needed. And one of our barriers was our own fault. And then with our process tech students, they need technical writing, but English 1301 was a prerequisite for technical writing. And so we got together and we looked at it and we decided they didn't need to have that as a prerequisite, you know? So we did what we could. And so now that is a course that if you're not TSI complete and that's the route you're going to go, you can be in INRW and be in the technical writing course because that, again, is what the students needed. So our focus now is on trying to be more student ready. We always want them to be college ready, but we're trying to be more student ready and really work on success now. We've got them in there, everybody's enrolled, and we're looking at ways to help them be more successful.
The VIP thing that I mentioned, Carolyn, is our version of trying to figure out what we need to do next, because we're looking at persistence rates for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 3.5, and 4 year, and 5 year. And so when we're talking about fine-grained analysis of what the students need and what they're responding to, that's why we're looking at different at-risk factors and why their persistence is dropping off and why you can do really well in a developmental or a co-requisite math and English, and then your sophomore year, there's a certain population of students that disappear. And we have ideas about why that is, but we don't know really what types of interventions are going to work for them. And some people may just need a stop out year for family issues and things like that with our particular cohorts. So what we're doing this year is we're doing a Designing Your Life 1 hour curriculum that goes throughout the entire year that walks them through pathways and thinking about their careers in terms of projects instead of in terms of actual career titles, because that seems to be one of the major issues that our students have, is that they are coming in droves because they think they have to, but they don't actually have a real pathway and a purpose that's driving what their choices are. And so when they start dropping out of different classes and shifting their majors around and moving from nursing, which gobs of students move from nursing into liberal arts, they don't actually know what they're going to do with that move. They just know that they don't want to be in a lab and they can't hack it or whatever they think. And then they make this move and there's not really a reason in their own heads for it other than to survive and keep persisting. So we're working on the career support, motivational, affective part for the next few years.
Well, I am going to be mindful of the time. It's 2:27, so we have three minutes left. We are gonna when I post the slides for the video and the slides on our website, we'll include a slide with everyone's contact information from our panelists, if that's okay with them, because I think some people may have specific questions they want to ask about certain institutions that maybe align well with like the makeup of theirs. I do want to thank the Texas Success Center and Christy Short for all their help this summer in putting together this summer webinar series, and thank the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board for supporting this. Again, I think we got some really good information out there, and it's all recorded so we can all watch it, even though some of us may have been busy this summer and not been able to watch these things. And I hope you all stay healthy and stay safe, and you're ready for the fall for whatever that brings for us. And thank you all for joining today.